Okay, so good evening, everybody. We're going to kick things off as we have the majority in now that have registered. So you're very welcome to this evening's Club Grand Scheme webinar from Badminton Ireland. I'm joined on call tonight by Laura Now, who's the membership officer with Badminton Ireland. And also our colleagues in Ulster Badminton, so Andrew Stewart and Ryan Prentice, who will be taking us through the Ulster Badminton Club support grant at 7:45. So for any clubs located in Northern Ireland, we will be kicking that grant. We'll be kicking off that grant at 7:45. But we're just going to kick off. We're going to kick off this part of the session with. I suppose, well, I've touched on the overview already. So the first part of this evening's session is the Badminton Ireland Club Grant Scheme, which is provided for through resilience funding from Sport Ireland. And then we'll move on and do the Ulster Badminton Club support grant when this session concludes. So just to give an overview of the grant, and before I do, sorry, some housekeeping. There's a Q&A session at the bottom of your screen there for anyone who has questions along the way this evening, and we'll try and answer those as best as possible at the end of tonight's session. So just keep that in mind if you do have any questions as we go through this evening's presentation. In terms of the resilience funding, a number of you have completed the expression of interest form that would have been circulated in August/September time. And when those expression of interests were completed and sent back to us in Badminton Ireland, and we put an application together to Sport Ireland to obtain funding to deliver this Resilience Fund grant scheme. And following the announcement Monday 2 weeks ago, we were successful with that funding application. So we're now at the stage here where we can start an application process for our clubs and our member organisations to apply for funding through Badminton Ireland. So to give an overview of the grant and just touch on some of the key points before we go any further. So the max funding that will be available through the Badminton Ireland Club Grant Scheme is €1,500 in total. And I suppose if you keep an eye there on point 6, that limit on grant amounts may be put in place based off that the demand that there may be for this particular grant scheme. So that's just something to bear in mind. Clubs must be affiliated to Badminton Ireland, and the aim of the grant is to prevent viable badminton organisations from becoming insolvent. Just to touch on the point of the LSP Club Grant Scheme, and it's something that we discussed recently at the club forums, is that if clubs have applied through their local sports partnership club grant resilience fund scheme, that would deem them then ineligible to apply for the Badminton Ireland Resilience Fund Club Grant Scheme. So we would have been supplied with a list as well of clubs who were successful through their local sports partnership. So just in terms of us being able to monitor our grant. And then finally, the deadline day for this application is Friday, December 18th at 5 p.m. And we will be adhering strictly to that timeline. So just to take you through the application form section headings, and I will do, there's only a number of slides here tonight, and then what we'll do is I'll share the screen and we'll actually just run through the application form itself. So there are 8 sections in total. The first one is club application details, COVID protocols compliance, then is section 2. Club governance is section 3. Club finance, section 4. The outline of funding software is section 5. Other COVID-19 funding sources is section 6. Support and documentation, or supporting information, sorry, is section 7. And then the final part of the application is the agreement to the declaration and the submission of the application. So in terms of support and documentation, and just to touch on it here, as we've had a couple of questions over the last few days on the support and documentation. So examples of documentation that can be submitted alongside the application form. So the application form is via Microsoft Forms, and a link has been circulated to all clubs and is also available on the Badminton Ireland website, where a web page has been set up specifically for the grant scheme. And support and documentation can be sent to Laura now at lau@badmintonireland.com. But examples of support and documentation are latest available financial reports that your club may have, that your organisation may have, and also include a reasonable estimate of the financial support required. So, and I suppose that's a couple of sections within the application form itself. Then also details of actual reductions on income from the current season with supporting evidence. You know, so an example of that might be a comparison of your membership numbers from the last season or two compared to maybe how many memberships you've taken in so far in the 2020-2021 season. Details of any cost savings on expenditure, such details of any increases arising from increased membership. So any support and documentation will assist with your application. So just to give an overview then of the grant scheme timeline. So we announced the BI Club grant scheme on the 19th of the 11th. And this evening we're hosting the information webinar, which is the 25th. What I would say is that tonight's session has also been recorded, so you'll also be able to access this on our website, should you need to go back on any of the points that are discussed this evening. Application deadline, as I stated a couple of slides ago, is Friday the 18th of December at 5 p.m. And then the following Monday, there'll be a confirmation of the application sent out to all those who have applied. Then there will be communication to all applicants in January of 2021 to confirm how the application process has gone for those who have applied. So that takes me then to the Microsoft form itself. So I'm just going to stop share for a moment here now and reshare my screen then. So we thought it would be best to visually bring up the form on screen and go through it as if we were completing now, just to give people insight into what the form looks like, the various sections, and then the type of information that's required within each of the headings. So I'll be, I suppose, skimming through the answers in terms of completing them here, just to help us move along the process. So when you open up the form, you'll see the intro information there at the top of the application. So just again, some of the points that we would have mentioned earlier on. So maximum amount of funding available per club is 1,500, and that is to line up with the local sports partnership application process as well, in terms of fairness for all those clubs who did apply through their local sports partnerships. Deadline date is Friday 18th at 5 p.m. Support and documentation can be sent to Laura now, and then any questions or queries that you have in the coming weeks can be directed either to myself at fandrews@badmintonireland.com or again to Lauren at lau@badmintonireland.com. And then there's just a brief privacy statement there. So in section 1, very straightforward, are the club application details. So in field 1, we'd complete club name, county that the club is based in, the address of the club, the contact name of the person who is completing the application in field 4, contact email address for section 5. So I'm just going to input my own email address here now. .com. Contact number. Again, I'll just input my own for the time being. And then the final two, so the position of the person who is completing, the position on the committee of the person who's completing the application on behalf of the club. So it may be secretary, and then names and roles of 2 committee members who approve this application. So I may put down my chairperson, Laura now, chairperson. And then I may put down Conor Fadgen, treasurer. And that is all that's required in section 1. So when you hit next, you're brought to section 2, which is the COVID protocols compliance. So just a couple of questions here. So has your club appointed a COVID officer? So yes. Have registered COVID-19 officers undertaken the relevant training either through Sport Ireland or Badminton Ireland? That would be a yes. Has your club completed a COVID risk assessment before returning to play? And is your club adhering to Badminton Ireland COVID return to play protocols? And that would, all those questions are mandatory. So then next again, still in club. So then we're into club governance. So just a note here is if you answer no to any of the questions from questions 14 to 18, just make note to contact National Governance Officer Conor Fadgen at cfadgen@badmintonireland.com. So for the purpose of this evening, does your club have any juvenile members, i.e. players under the age of 18? So I'm going to say yes. If you say yes, you're going to be brought to the next question. Has your club appointed a designated safeguarding officer? So this is one of the questions where if you answer no, you will touch base with Conor. So I'm going to say yes. Name of club safeguarding officer. I'm going to input Lauren's name again. Has your club appointed, has your club completed its child risk assessment? So I'm going to say yes here. Has your club a child safeguarding statement in place? And are all relevant personnel, coaches, volunteers within the club guard vetted? So again, that's all stuff that those who are running juvenile clubs at present are doing anyway. So that's just that section in terms of club governance. The next session then is the club finance. So please indicate, so question 19 is please indicate your club's actual / forecasted reduction of income for 2020. So I suppose what you're looking for here is an estimate or the exact total if you have it, but obviously the year hasn't come to completion yet. So you just input a figure there. So I'm just going to keep numbers constant for the purpose of moving through the application. Please indicate your club's actual forecasted expenditure for 2020. Question 21 and 22 are pretty much the same questions, but they are relating back to 2019. So that's indicate your club's estimated income in 2019 and indicate your club's expenditure in 2019. Then as we scroll down, provide details on initiatives, projects or programs that will have to be deferred, postponed or cancelled that would normally generate revenue for your club. So you could put a number of things in here. So, you know, if you run any fundraising initiatives which generate revenue for your club, just list those off, a brief description of what they are, and then also the type of revenue that they would generate for your club. So that would go into this text box here. I'm just going to input a number again so that we can move on, and those details. Again, any reduction in membership, you might touch on it, but you probably have covered it off up above. And then question 24 and 25 are just in relation to reserves that the club or member organisation might have. So value of reserves used to date to support the operations of the club and its activities. So that's in there, and value of the current reserves of the club in there. So then, suppose this is the main section of the application, and it's the outline of the funding sought. And the headings of the questions really provide, I suppose, the insight as to where you can apply for the funding. So question 26, for example, is provide specific details on the COVID-19 related costs for hygiene consumables. For example, hand sanitizer, face masks, soap, and gloves. So again, just input the answer. Then as we move through it, provide specific details on the COVID-19 related infrastructure costs. So, that might be around the areas of signage or dispensers. So again, provide specific details on COVID-19 related equipment / venue cleaning costs. Provide specific details on increased venue hire to comply with social distancing. So this is, I suppose, if you've had to increase your court hours in order to accompany your membership for club activities. Provide specific information on the cost and details of any other requirements that might come to mind. And then also the final question there, which is mandatory, is please indicate the total funding being applied for. So the sum of the above amounts from your other sections. Total funding, once again, cannot exceed €1,500 per club. So just going to input. The next session then is in relation to other COVID-19 funding sources that your club or member organisation may have availed from. So have you received funding from other organisations for items included in your application? Note that if you answer yes to this question, you will have 2 more drop-down questions. So it's please list all organisations who you have received the funding from, and then also what the values of those funds were that you have received in terms of that. If you answer no, you'll be brought straight to the next section. And then that takes us to the end of the application process. So I suppose what I would say is that the application form is set up to encourage as many clubs as possible to apply for the club grant scheme. And myself and Lauren are available to assist in any way, and we have had a number of queries since the announcement, where we have been able to provide feedback and assistance to clubs. So it's very much open book. If you do have questions or queries, do touch base with us. Lauren, is there any questions there?
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. So the first one is, does the grant only apply to clubs, or can juvenile county associations apply for it?
Yeah, sorry, that's actually something I probably should have mentioned, is that there is a separate link for county associations. And so again, myself and Lauren can resend that to you if you haven't already received. The application form that we've just ran through is pretty much the exact same. There is 1 or 2 additional questions just in terms of costs around management, but it's pretty much the exact same. So yes, you can.
Right, perfect. And then the next question is, should the club account be a set of audited accounts?
Ideally, yes. Is the question, is the response to that? Yeah, ideally, yes. If they haven't been audited, then maybe touch base and we can discuss further. But I suppose from a club practices point of view, what we would be advising is that everyone does have their accounts audited at the end of the year, particularly when you go to your AGM as well. So,
right, perfect. And then the next 2 questions is very similar. So basically, so can the person filling in the form be one of the committee members listed in question 8?
Yes. I know I use two different names there, but yes, the person can be one of the people listed in question 8.
Okay. I think that's all the question we have so far.
Was there someone who mentioned that they couldn't hear me properly there?
Oh, it's sorted.
Oh, that's sorted. Okay, well, if there was any information that you did miss out on there as a result, then don't hesitate to get in contact with us tomorrow, and we can discuss what needs be there. And as I said, any questions or queries can be directed to myself or Lauren in relation to the club grant. We'll give it another minute or two for questions, and then otherwise we'll wrap up for this evening. So just want to thank everyone for taking the time out to join us on tonight's webinar. Your time is very much appreciated, and also the time you're giving up to complete the applications on behalf of your clubs to make a difference. So thanks a million on that front.